News coming out this evening from Donald Tusk that progress has been made. He hopes to have a new proposal on the table tomorrow.
Well, they have a deadline to meet, don't they? I mean, we saw some theatrics last night when he walked out and said, no deal, sort of deal or no deal territory. And today we hear by midday tomorrow, he will publish a document, albeit perhaps not fully complete. I mean, they have to do this. There is a European summit coming up on the 18th and 19th of February, and they've got to get this document out to be discussed. I don't know what's going to be in it, but I do sense that given that Mr. Cameron has asked for so very little, that on the question of migrant benefits, they've got to give him something.
And if we don't see agreement for the summit, we have to get something ratified in time for the referendum. Is there a risk we see this referendum not happening this year?
Well, there is a risk, but I think, it's in the Prime Minister's interests to hold this referendum as quickly as he possibly can. Personally, I'd take it right into 2017 and give my side of the argument more time to make their case. But what the Prime Minister fears is another summer of real, serious migrant problems coming across the Mediterranean. He knows that as this continues, there'll be more people from ISIS that come in, there'll be more tension, there'll be more barriers going up within Schengen. So I think we're going to see a deal on the 18th, 19th of February, and I still believe myself that a June referendum is on track.
A deal, but by the sounds of it, it's tinkering around the edges as far as you see it.
Well, I mean, if you poll the undecided voters in Britain and ask them what do they want to see from the renegotiation, well, there are three things. Firstly, they want to see us spending less money on being EU members. Secondly, they want to see the British Parliament and indeed our Supreme Court having the ability to veto European law if it's against our interests. And thirdly, and crucially and overwhelmingly, what people want to see from this renegotiation is a Prime Minister that gets something that cuts the number of migrants that are coming to Britain from the European Union. Now, I've no doubt that the Prime Minister will claim, well, look, we've cut migrant benefits, but actually, the Office of Budget Responsibility say that is one of the very, very small pull factors. And if you look at the fact that the minimum wage is going up at the end of this Parliament to a living wage, even taking away migrant benefits is replaced by the increase in that wage. And so I think the Prime Minister has got a big job on his hands to persuade people that he's going to get a deal on migration that will make any difference at all.
Well, we're joined as well by Dominic Grieve, MP and a founding member of Conservatives for Reform in Europe. Good evening to you as well. You heard Nigel Farage there.
I heard the end of what he had to say because I've just arrived hot foot in the studio from a vote.
Well, it's great to have you here and thank you for rushing to join us. But do you think that the reforms that are likely to be on the table are going to be anything substantive? Are they going to really make a difference?
Yes, they are substantive reforms. But of course, at the end of the day, you're going to have to take a view as to whether you think it's in the national interest to be in the European Union or out of it. The reforms which have been highlighted in the last 48 hours include firstly the possibility of having an emergency brake that can be triggered immediately after the referendum in respect of welfare benefits. That's certainly a step in the direction that the Prime Minister wants and that we want. Equally, it's right to say that Europe's going through a crisis of migration at the moment, and I'm not at all clear in my mind where Europe will be collectively in the next 2 years on this particular issue. But it's worth bearing in mind that even Daniel Hannan, who's campaigning with Nigel Farage to get us out of Europe, has accepted that if we want to be in a free trade area, there's going to have to be freedom of movement. So there's a sort of slight unreality about some of the arguments that are being put forward in favour of Brexit on this, because it won't, even if we leave the EU, it will not deliver in its entirety in any way a prevention of migrants coming into this country if we wish to engage in international trade and commerce and be part of a free trade area.
Well,
Nigel, what's your response to that?
I'm sorry, that is complete and utter rubbish. Nowhere else in the world does the fact you buy and sell goods from each other free of tariffs means you have the absolute free movement of people. Absolutely nowhere else in the world, or indeed in the history of free trade deals. If Daniel Hannan has changed his position and come towards your side, well, that's for him to do. But I'm perfectly clear, and those of us campaigning for Brexit are perfectly clear. We want a relationship with Europe that is positive. We want a free trade deal with Europe. We want to cooperate with our European neighbours and do all of those things. But we believe it's in the interest of Britain to have an Australian-style point system for immigration so we can make sure that those that come to Britain have got skills to bring that we need, haven't got criminal records, and bring with them their own health insurance. And we cannot do that, and we cannot control the numbers or our borders as members of the European Union. And in the end, whether Cameron gets a deal on migrant benefits or not...
I've understood Nigel Farage's position, and yes, if we wish to withdraw completely from a free trade area, and we wish to accept tariffs for our trade with Europe, we could put up barriers which could control European migration into this country. Although under economic pressures and an attraction for this country as a place to work, it would still present some very considerable obstacles. And of course, to be quite frank with you, unless you have a visa system with every European country with whom you're trading, you are still going to get the problem of people turning up in this country and, for example, claiming asylum. Indeed, if we come out of Europe, the protection we have at Calais against that at the moment would disappear. So you have to get down to the fundamentals on this.
Indeed. Can I just change the subject slightly, Nigel, because we are hearing tonight that a meeting of Conservative backbenchers has failed to come to an agreement about which Leave campaign to back. The Leave campaign, I mean, frankly, it's in disarray, isn't it? This is falling apart.
Well, there is a difficulty, and it's very interesting that Dominic Grieve mentioned Daniel Hannan, who is one of the directors of an organisation called Vote Leave. Now, you've got Vote Leave vying for the nomination and Leave.eu vying for the nomination. But it's very interesting that it would appear that Vote Leave's position, as expressed by Daniel Hannan, is becoming rather soft on the question of free movement of people. There appear to be some in that camp that favour a double referendum, namely we have a referendum and then perhaps another one a few years down the line to see if we've got a better deal. So I think it's becoming clearer that there are some very big questions around whether Vote Leave really wants us to leave the European Union. Look, don't think it's just the Leave side that's split. After all, the Remain side... Well, the Labour Party are doing their own thing, the SNP are doing their own thing, and Lord Rose is doing his own thing.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.